Killer 95.3, good morning. It's the Danny Hill Experience. We got Campbell Witten, criminal defense team in the studio. It's that time of week. Sam, Clayton, Jesse, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, so let's talk DUIs, gentlemen. First of all, marijuana. We talk about marijuana DUIs. Is that still DUI?
Oh, yeah.
Seems like they seem to have, well, if I have my medical card, I'm on prescription drugs, right? It's a prescription. I can get pulled over. Can't you still get a DUI for Xanax and Zoloft?
Yes.
And NyQuil and
Tylenol PM. I mean, it doesn't matter. The legality of the drug doesn't matter. Alcohol is legal.
So how do they judge these different? Now we know with DUIs you get pulled over and you have a set limit, right? And do you have to take a blood test? Do you have to take a breathalyzer? Can you refuse all that? How does that work?
Well, initially, if you're pulled over and you're not on DUI probation, you're 21 or older, the officer is going to try and make you do some field sobriety tests. He'll explain it in a way that makes you feel like you do have to take the field sobriety test, but you don't have to take any of those field sobriety tests. So, I mean, all the walking the line, the reciting the alphabet, all those things that we hear about as field sobriety tests, those are all optional. So you should refuse all of those. Now, if you're actually arrested, if you're actually put in cuffs, and the officer will then ask you, all right, do you want to submit to a breath or a blood test? Now, that particular test, after the arrest, if you don't submit to it, your license can be taken away, will be taken away for a year minimum.
And that's through the DMV, right?
That's through the
DMV. They automatically will just take it away.
Right. So you still can technically refuse that one, but just because you have a California license and you're driving on the California roads, you're impliedly saying, yes, if I'm arrested for DUI, I'm agreeing to submit to a chemical test.
Gotcha.
So if you then say, no, I'm not going to submit to it now, the DMV could take your license away.
So then but what do you think is the best thing to do? Should you take a breathalyzer? Should you do it right then? Should you not do it right then? Or because I know a lot of people, this is what's going on through everyone's mind. Well, I had a glass of wine at dinner. I had a steak, so I should be fine. So I'll just blow in the breathalyzer, and they'll see that I'm not drunk, right?
It's kind of a big topic.
Right.
First of all, avoid making statements about how much you had to drink and when you drank. 'Cause that's what they'll, hey, have you had anything to drink? How much have you had to drink? Lie's probably going to get you more trouble than telling the truth, but then, it's better to avoid making those kind of statements for starters.
Right. Everybody will say, oh, I had 2 beers. And then when we talk to them, sometimes we hear people say, yeah, I had 2 beers and I had 4 shots. And So it's,
it's more than just 2 beers.
And so you're going to get yourself in trouble. It's going to look like you're hiding something. It's best to say in response to questions about whether you've been drinking, I'd like to have my lawyer here while I answer these questions. And
talk to a lawyer before I answer
talk
any
to
questions.
a lawyer. Yeah. Now, as far as choosing the test, the science behind the breath test and the blood test is so complicated that's a hard question to answer, and it depends on the circumstance.
The DA will give us the lab reports, 1 page, but we order the full report, which is like 300 to 400 pages. And there's all kinds of graphs to see if they tested it properly. A lot of times on DUI cases, one of the first things, the first couple months of the case is often just collecting a lot of evidence to see if they did everything properly. Yeah. So it is a little complicated to just try to explain the difference between breath and blood.
Yeah, when you do a breath test, you're blowing into a device, usually that the officer has in the back of his car.
Yeah.
Okay? And then they'll print out a little printout saying what the reading is, and then that's part of your police report. And that's all. There's no laboratory that's going to double check that or anything. If you do a blood test, it goes to the Kern County Criminalistics Laboratory. They do an actual test. And sometimes there are some huge problems with the way they do that. I did a DUI trial last year where the lady that testified about testing the blood sample taken from my client, they had to give me all this stuff, all this material on all these mistakes she had made at the lab. And she had taken, for example, a whole tray of blood vials, and she put every one of them 1 slot over. So what happens is the machine reads all these, or does tests on all of these tubes, and then the results were put on the wrong vials.
Oh, wow.
So if your blood sample happened to be in the tray next to the blood sample from some really drunk guy, your number is going to be inflated. And they didn't discover this until after like 20 people had already pled to their DUI charges.
No way.
So they had to go back and send letters to all their lawyers. And, those lawyers should have done their homework and should have looked into this ahead of time, but they didn't. And so that's part of, if you get a good DUI lawyer, what we do, we pull all of these records, we scrutinize them to see if there's a mistake. And then, when I cross-examine this lab tech, she's like, well, those are the only mistakes that I've made. There's 5 or 6 in the stack. And I'm like,
know of.
the only ones you know of. Oh, yeah, well, every time I make a mistake, They tell me about it. Oh, the ones that they catch, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah. So if there are 100 more that nobody caught, you have no idea, dude. Oh no, I don't. And then meanwhile, she's testifying to a jury, and the DA is asking the jury to convict the guy of a crime, take his license away, put him in jail, maybe. I mean,
and you don't even know if it was him or
and
his blood level.
Yeah,
or not.
and juries like to think. We all like to think that the crime lab. Oh, this is like what we see on CSI. These people are real pros. They are pros, but they're also human and they make mistakes. Yeah. So when you make a mistake, you don't want your freedom to be riding on the mistake.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of scary.
And you could be one of those people where, like you say, you get pulled over and you're like, yeah, whatever, take my blood, do breathalyzer. I don't care. I'm not intoxicated. And then there's a mistake, right? They do the blood work and they come back. Oh, you were a 3.4.
Right.
Really? How is that possible?
That's impossible.
That's impossible because I would have been dead right now if I was a 3.4, right? Like,
one of the things, just for representing people, I wish people wouldn't say is they always say, I had 2 beers, but it was like 5 hours ago. They think that'll help them. The truth may have been they drank a beer right before they got in the car. They think that's hurting them, but there's what's called the rising blood alcohol defense, which we won't go into. But that's the worst thing to say, is that it's been hours since you drank. So
just don't say anything.
Yeah, avoid talking about drink, but like, if nothing else, avoid that statement, because we get it all the time. Oh yeah, I had like 2 beers. Oh, but no, I haven't had anything to drink in hours. Or they think they're concerned that if they have alcohol in the car, that'll be, they hide that fact. They think it'll be damaging. And the truth is, it might be a ticket, but it actually helps their DUI defense. So again, just don't make statements. Don't assume what is a good defense to put on to the police right there.
And it's tricky with DUIs because it's like we have, like, especially here, we have this harsh thing where we really hate DUIs. We really do. But yet it's still technically legal to drink and drive to a .08. So it's like we hate it, but only we hate it to a point, and then we're okay with it, right? So it seems weird to me, because then it seems like that leaves in most people's minds, well, I only had a couple of beers, so I should be legal to drive, right? I should be okay to drive. I'm not breaking the law. And then they get a .09 or a .0. I mean, how do you deal with those cases where it's right on the line?
The other thing to keep in mind, too, is that there still is the crime of driving under the influence of alcohol. So technically, you could have a blood alcohol level that's much below .08. But an officer could still make a case if he sees you weaving all over the road.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That, yeah, maybe you only blew a .04, but based on your driving pattern, you're definitely under the influence of that .04. You're a lightweight, basically.
You had 1 beer. You literally had 1 beer.
And I didn't know that was the case. I thought if you were under .08, you're fine.
Like it was. No, just recently I had a client who was prosecuted. He blew .04 and .06. I mean, well under the legal limit, and they still charged him with a DUI.
Wow.
Now we got dismissed.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But I mean, yeah.
But they still went after
He still got
him.
charged. He had to spend a bunch of money to deal with it. It's a big problem. I think some of these things you're talking about, these little guidelines, or you can have this many drinks if you're this way, or the loss is .08. A lot of people kind of convince themselves
what they're doing is okay.
That they're doing things. And if you have to convince yourself, you really need to step back and think about it, because you're going to get yourself in a world of trouble if you're wrong.
Yeah,
you're wrong. Pretty
wrong
often.
Most people use the "How do I feel?" test. Like, I feel fine. I mean, because you could
never works
You could have
out.
a couple drinks. You could eat a big meal. Sometimes people take a nap. I mean, if you eat a meal and take a nap, you're going to wake up. You're not going to feel like the effects of a couple drinks. You may still, and technically you're not under the influence, but then you have to worry about over the .08. You may feel fine, but
you never know.
You're kind of playing with fire if you try to.
Well, and like we said at the beginning of this, the best way to avoid it is if you've drinking it all, don't go driving around or don't get anywhere near it. But
Or have our number in your phone.
keep your number. Yeah, keep this number handy.
Yeah, and we have a lot of information on our website as well. CampbellWitten.com. You can go there, read up on all kinds of stuff about DUIs, different defenses that we like to raise. Obviously, way more than we can have time to get into this morning.
Right now. 334-3000. That's the number. Campbell Witten Criminal Defense Team. Sam, Clayton, Jesse, thank you guys so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.